Michael, let's welcome a debut author who has written one hell of a book.
Yep.
Mr. MP Woodward. Welcome to the show.
How are you?
Cheers. Thanks,
Cheers.
gentlemen.
All right.
Good to be here. Very excited to be here.
We're assuming that's high class vodka. So here we go.
It is. Not even ice.
So the handler, I think, comes out around Memorial Day, if I'm not mistaken.
It does. It comes out on May 31st.
Awesome. May 30th.
Right.
Well, can you give our audience a slightly redacted summary?
No. Yeah, it's about a divorced CIA couple where she is kind of the more senior of the two and is sort of a senior level officer, and her husband has left, or her ex-husband has left the CIA kind of under a cloud of suspicion. And as it turns out, they are the wife is given the assignment to work an uranium problem that has to do with enrichment of nuclear fuel, highly enriched uranium. And we have a well-praised asset that's there, but that asset was put in place by her ex-husband. And now that he doesn't like to be around the CIA, basically wants nothing to do with it. He's something of a recluse. It's her job to kind of get him back on side, and they work together to affect the mission, which I won't give away any further.
No lack of tension there, huh?
Well, yeah, exactly. In doing this, I really kind of wanted to explore thematically the idea that there are some bonds that just matter more than others. And so I like the idea of this couple who they're not 25, they're more like, in their kind of mid 40s. And they have a daughter that they've raised together. They've had a life together, and they've only been divorced for a couple of years. And so the idea of them having to work together, some of the divorce is a bit raw, but there's also quite a bit of latent trust there that comes through in the book, and that's what I wanted to make a big theme.
Well, you succeeded, and the handler, yeah, absolutely. The handler is a gripping espionage thriller on its own merits, but it's that intimate relationship at its heart that you were just discussing with Meredith and her ex-husband John that I think takes it to a different level. And we've had a couple authors on the show with CIA backgrounds, at Almakatsu and David McCloskey, and we've discussed kind of the intricacies of the case officer, operative, handler, agent relationship, and it's already sort of fraught with a lot of tension that's naturally baked in. But what inspired you to amp this scenario up with this estranged couple? What was the spark of inspiration behind that?
I guess I'd answer that in a couple different ways, maybe three different ways. First, the inspiration for the actual story about an asset that has his own family life and has his own, he's Iranian and has his own sort of concerns. That was really set off very crisply for me when the Iranians shot the Ukrainian airliner down over Tehran in January of 2020. And this is one of those disasters where you could actually watch it on YouTube. And it made it just very real and raw for me to think about, there were a lot of Iranian students on there on their way to Canada, which I used in the book. It made me think a lot about how angry an average Iranian citizen would have been to have lost somebody in that flight, and how they might react. And so that actually set the plot in motion for me. Then when it comes to the main characters, that the husband and wife, I guess I had sort of two things on my mind. One is I've been married for 28 years happily. I've seen a lot of other marriages, and you just sort of get to a point in your life where you want to kind of tell that story about that bond, and that's something that I set out to do. The other is that a lot of current espionage fiction has like really tough guys that don't have vulnerabilities and things like that. I wanted the man to have more vulnerabilities. I wanted him to be really damaged psychologically. And for the woman, I really wanted to show what career women are like. I've spent more than 20 years working in tech as an executive and have come across some really, really impressive women that just keep a lot of balls in the air, manage very complicated lives. And I thought it would be intriguing to see a CIA executive like that. So those are kind of the things that came together for me.
Yeah, nice. Sean and I are writers, and we're keenly aware of the time and effort that goes into creating a debut that and the handler sets a new bar for debuts, believe us. And as somebody who's intimately involved, that your prior work was with Amazon Prime, and it's still in its early years of entertainment creation, delivery, business. How are you carving out your time writing this unbelievable book, folks? Unbelievable. How are you doing that as a corporate executive in the high demand field and writing and being able to manage really your first effort into fiction at the same time?
Yeah, I guess the first answer is that it was kind of therapy for me.
Oh.
It was a little of it was a little bit of my Walter Mitty, moment, where work can just get to you, and you want that outlet. And the Amazon culture is sort of famously demanding, very demanding, and very defined, almost cultish at certain points. And so it is much more than a job. It is absolutely a life. And so I'm the kind of person that has always needed a creative outlet. So then, the second half of that question is sort of, well, how do you find the time if the job is so busy? The job was super busy. Kind of three ways. One, I traveled a lot globally. And so you have time on airplanes. It's kind of it's sort of a healthy creative pursuit. I made sure to get the thickest opaque screen protector I could get, because I just can't write if I'm thinking about a guy, leaning over next to me. So that was one. The other is that I'm an early riser. I can't help it. I sleep 6 hours and I go to bed early. So I'm up. I'm up at 4 o'clock every day, and sometimes I wish I wasn't, but usually I would be working on this for like 3 hours before my day got going, just as something to do. And then the third thing that happened was COVID, and so that took away the travel part of this, unfortunately. But it did add in the side where I didn't have to commute to the office, so that morning time got even a little bit longer, and the afternoon time got a little bit longer. So that was how I squeezed it in, but it was at the margins. And it was that was sometimes very challenging.
Yep. Okay.
How long from conception to the final book was it for you?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by final book. Well, the timeline for me went something like this. That thing happened when I was on my way to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. So kind of an industry confab. And that was the day after that shootdown happened that I mentioned in Iran. And I just kind of thought about that story the whole way. It was only like a 3-hour flight, but I thought about the whole way there. And I got to my room at the Wynn and hurry up and started scribbling notes. And for some reason, I was just sort of seized by it. So that was early January. Then I think I started, I probably put pen to paper maybe the next week, the week after that. So, you're talking mid-January. And I had what I would call a reasonable first. I had the draft that I sent to agents, when was that? July. So I probably finished the book in June. So it was about six months, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's a hell of a.
It's killing Sean right now.
Well, we live, and you'll know this as much as anybody working for Amazon. We live in a world of short attention spans. A lot of entertainment is geared towards those short attention spans. I grew up on espionage fiction of Le Carré, Ken Follett, Ludlum, David Morrell, and while they all had satisfying action, they were also thinking men's and thinking women's thrillers. And I was struck by the classic quality of this novel in that regard. You took time to develop the secondary characters, including those working against John, and you very effectively balanced the pacing with telling a rich, broad story. So my question after all that is that a natural tendency of yours as a storyteller, or was there an intentionality to that wider canvas?
Man, first off, thank you. Your praise means a lot to me. But the reason I smile is because I didn't know what I was doing. And so maybe that's a way of saying it came naturally, but I would say, if I would put it a different way, the only way I could figure out to say, like, well, why would this person do this? Why would this person do that? Was to tell a little bit of their story. And it just didn't make sense to me to have kind of like a one-dimensional villain. And it's like, well, he's bad, because he's evil, because he's not American, nothing like that. And I just kind of wanted to tell the perspective of how a Russian would think about it and how an Iranian would think about it. And that was as much me wanting to kind of, show a little empathy to them, but it was also me not really knowing, not really having another device for a reader to believe, like, well, why would he do that? Or come on, what human being would actually do that and just feel okay about it? Those kinds of things. So I ended up with this kind of panoply of characters, and I had in my head a highly climactic scene, and I had to get these about five different major characters to kind of all converge on that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the major thought in my head.
Well, speaking of characters, like parents, writers often claim that not to have a favorite, but we know that's not true. So outside of your protagonists, Meredith and John, the formerly married couple, which of the other characters did you have the most fun writing about, and why?
Yeah, I wonder if this shows through. Some people have read it, said it shows through, but Meredith's boss, Ed Rance, is kind of a early 50s climber within the CIA who's highly political, has a number of kind of moral compass issues,
Mm-hmm.
but in a regular guy way, not in an evil,
like you recognize that type. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that a lot, having worked in the military and corporate America basically all my life, I channeled a lot of thoughts around bureaucracy into the book, and I kind of wanted to show that. I wanted my characters to get frustrated by bureaucracy. I wanted to sort of, show people that swim well in it, and the different aspects of that. And for me, that Rance is that guy. And I don't know. This is back to that therapeutic comment. So that's it. He's the guy for me.
Did your wife give you like a little side glance, like, you seem to be writing this awfully well? Like,
oh man, I worried about that. I did. I actually, yeah. And there's some infidelity in the book, and I did. I was like, gosh, I'm going to have to just sit down and go, like, I'm not a professional author. I'm new to this, so I got to give it a shot. And these people need to be interesting, right? There has to be drama, and they're like, you understand that, right? But I think that was more my nervousness, because she is my very much valued first read. Was on this book, is on the one I'm working on now, and no, she got it right away, and was actually as you can imagine, is very helpful on informing the points of view of the female characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you touched on this a little bit just now. You're a former naval intelligence officer. You worked in the corporate world, and the fact of the intelligence world and the bureaucracy really it echoes in the authenticity throughout the Handler. But I was curious about how your other experiences, or how the other aspects of your Amazon job, did you draw from to create the fully realized novel? In other words, in your marketing efforts, you've been intimately involved with bringing dozens and dozens of stories to audiences. Does exposure to those stories, did that influence the way you structured your debut at all?
Oh, without a doubt. So in a couple ways. One is that one of Amazon's strengths is it kind of famously connected and is obsessed with its customers. And by customers, they mean the end customers. And in the case of video and entertainment, which Amazon really invested in heavily in all the time that I was there, they were really thinking about the end customer. So it made me think a lot more about the reader. I mean, to a certain level, I think every first-time novelist is sitting there thinking, nobody's going to read this, right? It's never going to make it, But I think having been around Amazon, I actually did approach it that way. Like, you got to keep this thing rolling. You can't confuse people here. You've got to satisfy here. You kind of have to deliver on these certain things. So there was that. There was also an aspect where my job was very international, and connecting or seeing video connect with these other audiences, you kind of got an idea of what worked and what didn't. And I felt like the espionage genre was really was not super well served. Like I didn't think there was enough happening there. I felt like, when I was growing up in the 80s, it was super popular. Tom Clancy was huge, all those kinds of things. And then I felt like it kind of went away, and so I wasn't seeing that as much, and so that impacted me. And then on the kind of marketing and positioning aspect, I was fortunate in that I got to meet a number of content creators, and to hear how they sort of thought about things, and to see things come together from, in the world of video, which is much different from writing, to see them come together from like some pretty ugly stuff or very drafty kinds of things to a finished product, actually made me think quite a bit about editing, and being cinematic and trying to keep things good and concise, and you have to show certain things, but you don't have to show a lot of other things, and keeping it a good clip. So yeah, I would say it had an influence on me.
Do you write visually, or like, since you were in that world? Because I know I write visually. Like, I see a scene and I'm just copying down what I'm seeing. Is that how you go about it?
Yeah, that's exact. I would say I write visually and emotionally. So I try to see a scene and have, certain. I try not to have descriptions overtake it. I feel like, I'm not sure how other authors approach this, but I feel like the reader will give you, a paragraph to set that scene. Maybe a couple other sentences here or there, but you got to be super efficient on that. And then after that, it's the action within that setting that, to me, is very very visual. I don't know how else you would do a book that has action in it without it being visual. How did that fist fly? Well, what did the gun do? And I certainly learned that in the editing process, that people are very meticulous about finding mistakes there.
Yeah,
it's really easy for, I guess we've done, Sean and I and Chris, we've done this for quite a while now, and we kind of probably do it like agents do. Like, we kind of form an opinion about a new author from the get-go. And for me, I would say by the end of chapter 2, I was drawing your writing style comparisons to like Robert Dugani, Mark Greaney for sure, even a little bit of John Sanford for me. Who have been your go-to authors that influenced you as an aspiring fiction author, when you kind of got started in all this?
Well, in this espionage genre, I would say early on, certainly Tom Clancy. And for me, that when I was in the military, he was a big deal, and that was sort of the technical aspect about being exacting on those kinds of details. He was also not afraid to have, sweep with a lot of different characters, and I did something where I brought in a lot of different characters, and I was thinking, hey, Tom Clancy did that, maybe I can get away with that too, which we talked about earlier. So certainly him. For suspense, I really liked Forsyth. I really appreciated the way that he could sort of do a slow burn. I think back to Day of the Jackal, that whole book's kind of a slow burn. So
masterpiece. Yeah.
So that him. I think in the more modern writers, Mark Greaney, for sure. I think Mark Greaney, to me, kind of defined like compelling action where you're just in it. And I was very impressed with him as a reader. I didn't read him until frankly, after I only started reading recently, but I'm enjoying David Ignatius quite a bit. I like his style a lot. So those are all the kind of the espionage guys from this may be totally dorky, but from a just general fiction point of view, I was really hooked on Herman Wouk, like The Caine Mutiny. I've probably read 5 times. Love that book. Winds of War, War and Remembrance.
Right.
Some of my favorites, and then Patrick O'Brien. The Aubrey Maturin series. Read those a whole bunch of times. C.S. Forster. So I sort of like that. Those themes with honor and military, but as character based as possible. I guess that's what attracts me.
Okay.
Well, as a married man of 27 years, so you got me on a next 27 years, so you got me for a year.
28 is hell. I'm more than
well, I'm
the 28-year itch.
right. By then, it's just callous, right? There's no more itch. It's over. Yeah.
Well, I'm well versed on the subject. I'm not sure how proficient, but definitely well versed. So I used the word authenticity earlier, and the relationship between Meredith and John definitely rang true to me. Even though my wife and I aren't divorced or estranged, the interaction and how well they knew each other and how just all of that was extremely, extremely authentic. So your wife, you mentioned, is your first reader. So tell us, what did you get wrong the first time?
Yeah, that's a good question. First off, a little background on my wife. We met in the Navy. She was a pilot and went to the Naval Academy, and so some of that, what I wanted in Meredith was to have some, not just that career woman stuff that I mentioned earlier, but doing that in an all male world, or not all male, but predominantly male world. And I met other female Navy officers, and knew a lot about how my wife thought about guys in that environment, right? And so I think I got that stuff right. I think that the things where I got wrong, she might be like, she wouldn't wear those clothes to this, or that the way that you're talking about, she wouldn't be attracted to it. She'd freak out about that, or I would say things like if a woman was kind of attracted to a guy, but women just aren't as visual maybe, and then he was put off, what would that be? And she'd say, well, a guy who laughs at his own jokes too much, so it's like just subtle things like that I would get down in a ham-fisted way, and she'd come back with some good suggestions to make it more interesting.
So now we know who the true hero is for the authoring of this book, right?
Heroine, yeah.
Well, so I'm reading this book and I'm saying, this is exactly like an Amazon Prime series, right? So looking forward now, now you're starting out a career, a full-time author from that corporate world. Was that something that you thought in the back of your mind, I'm going to make sure that this is a potential, series on Amazon?
God's honest truth, I didn't think anybody would read this, right? Like I like I said, I started off thinking this is fun, it's good therapy for me, and then I started feeling like, what though? I mean, I like it, right? And so then things kind of took off. So I didn't have that in mind, but like I said, I was familiar enough with how filmmakers thought about the arc of a story, and you got to be tight in a film. It's 2 hours, and so I tried really hard to think, and had seen the way things had connected with audiences, and had seen the way people reviewed various films, and so I wanted it to have that beginning, middle, and end in a satisfying way. So it was probably lurking back in my mind, but it wasn't like a strategy like, I know what I'll do. I'll write a book and Amazon will pick it up as a series, and I'm going to move.
Everybody will love it.
It wasn't right. Yeah. So a little of both, I guess.
Well, okay. I want to step aside from the handler for just a second, because this really goes to the core of like my interest. intelligence officer, business executive, and now an incredibly badass author that people are about to find out. But what I really want to hear about is the work that you did with the upcoming Lord of the Rings series adaptation.
Oh, so, well, I didn't do a lot. I did nothing with reduction.
I just want to hear every juicy detail that you got.
Yeah. No, people at Amazon weren't allowed, like, some of the things I could share is like the writers were locked in a room and they had their, their timelines for the characters spread all the way across and all these things going on for, for a long time, for like years. I was on the business end of the side, so more on distribution and setting up distribution around the world with media companies, telecom companies, guys like that, who are all very, very interested in it. But I wasn't close to the creative content, so can't give you any juicy details there.
No, that's disappointing. That's very disappointing.
I know. I'm sorry. I am disappointed sometimes. That's true.
just make something up for my kid.
Yeah, please.
I will say that there's kind of a sort of an urban story within Amazon that back when people were investing heavily in Prime Video and everybody's searching for a hit, right? Like how do you and so like House of Cards was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then Game of Thrones was a big deal. And there was supposedly, I wasn't at it, but there was supposedly an executive meeting where Jeff Bezos was saying, where's our show with dragons? Like we need something, like Game of Thrones. Where's our Game of Thrones? And people took that away to me. He wants dragons. We need dragons.
No, not necessarily.
Just find some dragons. And that gets a little bit back to my what I tried to bring into the book is that crazy top-down mentality that can happen with people with opinions and certain foibles in large organizations like an Amazon or any other Fortune 10 company, and places like the military. So all my life I've been probably too amused by that. It probably held me back. So that's why I say writing about it was always good therapy for me.
Well, speaking of top down, as a former intelligence officer, did you send your manuscript through a government review process? Did you have to do anything like that, or since it was CIA, did it matter?
I didn't, first of all, so hopefully I haven't got myself in trouble, but I was pretty careful to make sure I used everything that I used was very much open source. So there were times when, like, hey, for authenticity's sake, you could go a little deeper here, but there's really no need to do that. I don't think it would give any more to the story.
Well, some of the conversations early on, I was like, damn, this must have just happened last week. So
thanks. A lot of that is it's just imagination and I guess I kind of think about the intelligence aspect of this, or when I was writing it, I started thinking, because I mean, I have been out of the military for 20 years, so it's not like I was doing this yesterday. But I think the reason that it still hopefully comes across as authentic is because it's a little bit like if you went to medical school and you learned to be a doctor, treatments would change, right? New things would come along, the technology would change, but the basic process of being a doctor would be the same. And that's what I wanted to keep to keep in the characters, was that the way that they analyze was the same. And I really wanted to tell a picture. There's a lot of spy novels out there, and it's like, hey, we just need this one thing, and this spy has to get it, and it's just this one thing. Yeah. And what I really wanted to kind of get across was that it's more of a global picture. Right, you have electronic, you have signals intelligence, which is communications intelligence, and electronic intelligence, and communications intelligence. And so all those things kind of come together to form a picture. And it's the analyst's job to go like, look, here's the traffic coming in about this subject from this agent. I mean, there's like 17, 18 intelligence agencies, right? So here's what's coming in from these guys. Here's what's coming in from these guys. Here's what's coming in from these guys. Can we put that together and, all source intelligence is what we used to call it. And form the intelligence picture at not a tactical level, like on the battlefield where a commander needs to take out, artillery on the other hill, but at a strategic level, like what is happening here? And that's that's really what I wanted to try to bring in, because in my experience, I had had the benefit of being close to some senior admirals' staffs, even as a junior officer.
Mhm.
And so I saw a lot of that going on and contributed to that analysis. And so it's sort of that not knowing that what are the other pieces of this puzzle, that this enormous security establishment that we have in the United States, how do they all kind of contribute to that? I wanted to get that across.
Right. Good.
You did.
Thank you.
In other good news, Mr. Woodward, you have reached the end of the main portion of the interview unscathed. You made it this far. I don't see any scars or any blood or anything.
So far, so good. No bleeding yet.
I show our audience this cover. It's a glorious cover. Fantastic. And we may still touch on the book, but we are now into the lightning round, which, as I often say, we grew up with our mom saying, think before you speak. And this is the point of the show where we encourage you to ignore mom's advice and not necessarily think at all.
That's right.
That's not that hard for me. So.
All right. Well, I started off and from your social media, it appears you are an avid diver. So I want to know what the most harrowing diving experience you've had, and also want to ask you, do you know that there's great whites off La Jolla Beach, for crying out loud? And what the hell are you doing there?
Yeah, avid diver is extremely charitable, and that's thanks to the great magnification of social media. I learned to dive while in the Navy, and did that long time ago, and enjoyed that in some of the places where I was stationed around the world, and I always really loved it. And it's only recently that I have this kind of lifestyle change where I can do things like that. And so I went to recertify before, killing myself. And so when we went to recertify, we live up near Seattle, and it was like, hey, where can we go? It sounds awful. And we were down here in San Diego for a little while. So we went and did it. We did it here and brought my wife along. And yeah, I definitely had one of those, dude, what are you thinking? It's April, the water's 60 degrees, the waves were just pounding us. And so it was much different from where I learned in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And had to kind of navigate through these pounding freaking waves in La Jolla just to get out. And then underneath, you're doing these drills, and the water was moving around so ridiculously that we were like, at some point, just kind of holding onto a rock, just trying to stay steady while you're going, all right, now I'm going to rip your mask off, and it was like, man, I really should have thought this through, but by then it was too late. So
sounds better.
It was just a week, but to that point about the sharks, I probably won't be diving in off San Diego again. I think we're thinking more Caribbean places like that.
Yes. Go to Grand Cayman. There's no great whites there that I know of.
Anymore.
Even though they're everywhere there, they don't show up there. Okay. Second question. My daughter just went to a place that I saw a picture of you at. What was the biggest dog you've ever seen at the Coronado Dog Beach?
Great Dane, but I saw a Great Dane mixed with a horse, I think. I don't know what it was. This was just the other day. So it was a Great Dane that was probably mixed with a bull mastiff, because it had kind of extra jowls. So he had both the height and the bulk. He was an intimidating figure.
I think that means it's a mastodon, and I think the mom is a mastiff and the father's a Great Dane. That's how you get the height and so
people do that on purpose.
Yes. I would be one. I don't have that dog yet, but I do have a Great Dane. But I would love a mastodon.
You do? Yeah, I've known a couple. I've had a couple friends that had Great Dane. They seem like really, really, really sweet.
Very sweet.
The thing that it just seems like a lot to take care of. Like even in the yard, picking things up seems like
that's the most of it. I mean, she's lazy as hell, and she's a good she's a good burglar deterrent, even though she would probably show them where all the nice things were if they
yeah, no doubt. All you need is a shadow with that dog.
Exactly. Okay, so my last question, since I finished the book, I've been thinking about adaptation, and I thought, what if here's my pitch. You adapt it, but it's a sitcom, and the handler is the mother-in-law.
Well, it would certainly up the tension. And you could kind of introduce that wacky older component too, right? So I think the
unfiltered.
judgment, yeah, you lose the filter.
Yeah.
There's that, and then I think the judging, right, would be helpful. Making sure there's a more active comment on
Mission
lifestyle
debriefs. Mission debriefs would be brutal.
Absolutely. And then the physical aspect, throwing that person into some fight scenes might be fun.
Absolutely.
I like it. Ooh, all right. That's our number 273rd idea that we have to act upon. All right. My turn here. All right. Sean and I have been wondering this for quite some time now, and you should have some inside knowledge to this. When is our pitch to Amazon Prime, The Dirty Secrets of Fiction Authors, scheduled to start filming?
Listen, there is so much money flowing into the streaming media players right now. We used to joke that that Netflix answered the phone by going, "Hey, it's Netflix. We'll take your show." Right?
Yeah.
So all you really need is the phone number, and you're probably in.
All right. Good news. That's good news for us. All right. Number 2, we love Tom Colgan. And as Don Bentley rightly references, upon our constant reminders, it's the Tom Colgan. So you're going to have to learn this pretty quickly. So
Like
whenever you reference him, it's the Tom Colgan.
Yeah.
So I've had this idea for quite some time now, even before we met. Can you confirm, this is my suspicion, that I think he's an intelligence agent hiding in plain sight?
Oh, well, of course I can't confirm it.
Well, I mean, no one's going to watch this show, so you could sit between the three of us. So.
It would be dangerous. It is scary. All that Tom knows, and I guess that comes from a lifetime of reading thrillers and also probably debunking them, right? So yeah, I guess I have the same question, right? I don't know. He might be.
Right. Seems like the guy. All right. So last question of the day. And you referenced this. There are over a dozen intelligence agencies working throughout the U.S. government. What's your elevator pitch that the Navy intelligence agency beats all other sectors?
Well, that's Navy guys. That's one. The uniforms is 2.
Dress whites are beautiful. Got to see.
Yeah. Yes. I'm very excited about the new Top Gun coming back. Although it competes with the launch of my book, I'm sure Tom Cruise is very nervous about that. It is to be mildly serious. I did one thing I did like about, admired about naval intelligence to this day is that it's highly global. The oceans cover 70% of the Earth's surface, and the assets are sort of more strategic. So some military intelligence is of a much more tactical nature. What I was thinking about the Navy was that you really had to think a lot about, hey, what are they doing? Like, why are they moving this fleet?
Right.
Those kinds of things. And you were covering, pole to pole and all the way around. So I always kind of dug that.
Yeah.
And I just love to see.
Okay, there you go, folks.
Well, we love this book. You love the sea. I love the sea too, but I don't get to spend nearly as much time on it as I'd like. But we did love this book. I think everybody's gonna really dig this novel. As I said, it does not read like a debut. It's mature in every way from a writing perspective, but it has elements of the classics I grew up on that you just don't see very often. And thank you for writing it, and we can't wait to read the next one.
Thank you for reading it. Thank you for everything you just said. Thank you for having me on. I can't thank people enough. I am extremely grateful that at the reception that it's received. And I loved writing it. I loved the characters. I'm really enjoying writing the next one. It's one of those things where you're just very, very happy that all these things lined up. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and folks, I know we talk about debuts of the year and this, that, and the other. This, in my mind, this is going to be in the running for debut of the year. It really is. And so take it from us. Sean and I read over 100 books a year at least. And quite frankly, this looks like book 5, book 10 of a series. This does not look like somebody's first effort. This is going to be one of the top debuts of the year, if not the top debut of the year, guaranteed.
And if you don't believe us, believe Mark Greaney, believe Don Bentley, believe Mark Cameron, and believe the Tom Colgan, because
That's
all
right.
those know they're thrillers, and they felt the same way about it that we do.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you guys. I'm super, super humbled by that. I really appreciate that. And
Can't wait to
I
see your next
appreciate
one,
what you
pal.
said.
Seriously.
Yeah, me too. I'm almost done. So working on it right now. It's
All right.
we're through the second draft.
All right.
Cheers, and we'll see you next Monday on the Crew Reviews.
Take care.
Thanks, gentlemen.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Well, Michael, another great show with another great new author. You and I both love the book, The Handler, but
Yes.
you know what? I love that conversation with MP Woodward as much as I did the book.
Yep.
The guy is definitely going to be a success in this field. I'm going to sell the heck out of this book. I know you will as well. And just really enjoyed it.
This is a killer debut. It could be number 1. Take it from us, folks.
I wanted to hate him because
I know it's too good. It's too good.
But he's too damn nice.
Yeah.
But well, good time. We will see you next time on the Crew Reviews.
Cheers, everybody. Yowza.